Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend. I'm the Campaign Marketing Manager here at Elearning Brothers. Today we're going to be talking about designing impactful e-learning experiences. This session will be recorded. We will send a copy of it out to everybody who has registered so you can view that at your leisure afterwards. We will also be posting a copy of the recording on our blog so that you can access that and share it around as you wish. If you have questions during the webinar, we'll be ready to answer questions using the questions panel. That's part of the GoToWebinar control interface there. So please do use that to send in some comments and questions as you need them. And we'll be happy to get to as many of those as we can. All right, so we have some fantastic guests today, as you can see there on your screen. We've got Mohamed Elkhouly, an expert learning experience design manager. Thanks for joining us, Mohamed. We also have Richard Vass, our Vice President of Customer Success. And we're excited to hear what you both have to share. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you, Richard, to tell us a little bit more about our main presenter.
Oh, great. Thank you, Andrew. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. I won't say much today. Give Mohamed all the time that he needs to share some of his excellent insights. Mohamed and I go way back many years. We first met in Egypt years ago as we were both certifying for some soft skills training, and he's gone on to do wonderful things. Mohamed is currently leading a team of design professionals in Bangkok in Thailand, almost midnight his time, so we really appreciate him being on with us. And it's not often we get international professionals in the arena across a pond and in other parts of the world to give us some insights. He's here, he's back with us. He did a presentation a year or two ago, I think it was, and has made some updates to some of the suggestions he has for how to design and create impactful e-learning. So nobody better to give us practical hands-on approaches to how to best make the most of online training. So glad to have a personal friend and a colleague. So really glad to have you here, Mohamed. I'll let you take it away, my friend.
And I'll pass the screen over to you as well.
Okay. All right. So first of all, thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you, Richard, for the introduction. So, and thanks for Elearning Brothers for giving me the second chance to share with you another sort of endeavor. So, yeah, in today's webinar, we're going to discuss a tool that would enable us to design impactful e-learning experiences. And why impactful? Because it's not only about engagement. E-learning, so our focus here will be on asynchronous, self-paced e-learning and experiences, because we're not going to talk only about courses, it's about e-learning journeys. And this tool is called the Elearning Design Map. And actually the trigger to create or develop this e-learning design map was two things. Number one is that years ago, I was looking for, or over the 12 years of experience in the L&D field, I was looking for a way to consolidate the different instructional design models into one document, one process. Then the second thing was, as Richard mentioned, 2 years ago, I had a webinar as well with Elearning Brothers. And at the time, I was sharing another learning design map, but was focusing on instructor-led training. And at the time, I received many requests that people are looking for something that tackles the asynchronous e-learning or self-paced e-learning journeys or courses. So those were the triggers. And the good news is that the last 18 months, I was trying to test it, pilot it, apply it. And thankfully, I'm currently running a team of designers and developers. So we're creating solutions for 2,000 plus employees, 7 different countries. So I think what we're going to share today is quite solid. So that's the e-learning design map. Before proceeding, I would like to know more about you so that I can maybe guide you or customize my message according to your current positions or your profile in L&D. So this is our first poll. So if you would answer this question about your current role in L&D. So Andrew, you.
Yep, that's up on your screen. You can click directly on the screen. Also, please note that we understand in the L&D world, sometimes you'll wear more than one hat. So these are multiple select. If you are more than one of these, find yourself wearing more than one of these hats, please do select both of them. Looks like a large portion of you have participated in that poll, but we'll give you guys a couple more seconds. They continue to pour in. We definitely have a predominant group in 2 of these sections. We'll give you guys about 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so here's those results. I'll share them with everybody. 68% of the audience is instructional designers, 58% e-learning developers, 35% are classroom or online trainers, 32% L&D specialists, managers, and directors, and only 17% are L&D consultants. And keep in mind that there could be, I imagine a lot of our designers are also developers, or a lot of our specialists are also designers or developers.
Okay, cool. So the good news is that, yeah, it matches everything, or all the profiles that we're having in today's webinar. So what is the e-learning design map? So number 1, it's a project management tool. So it's a very comprehensive guideline that would enable you to manage your e-learning project, or designing your learning solutions end to end. And we will see how. Second, it's a very comprehensive guideline having different steps, and will tell you exactly how to complete each step, what exactly to be done in order to fulfill each of the stages of the map. And finally, it has a section in which you will document everything related to your project as a reference. So it's a project management tool. It's very comprehensive, and at the end of the day, you will have the full document related to your project in one-stop shop. And when to use it, whether you're designing e-learning journeys or courses from scratch, most probably you'll use, I would say, 60 to +% of the different stages of the e-learning design map. So number 1, when creating new courses, whether you're an instructional designer or you're working on the provider side, not the corporate side, you'll benefit from using it in creating courses from scratch. Second would be customizing courses. So if you already do have e-learning courses and you just need to tweak some things, the e-learning design map will be a good reference to see where are the gaps and how you can improve certain areas. And finally, for people in the corporate L&D, and I've been using this as well, to assess designs, whether they are internal designs, I mean, design of e-learning courses that have been developed internally within the corporate, or if you're working with third-party providers. So we'll be able to, check whether the design is proper, yes or no. And for the purpose of this webinar, we're not going to cover each and every step or stage of the map yet. The main objective is to explore it and learn how to navigate through its different sections and components. And also, you will have the map. I think, Andrew, it's uploaded on our tool, right? Webinar tool.
Yes. So in the GoToWebinar control panel, there's a handouts section, and you can click it right there, and you can download the PDF. So you feel free to do that at any time.
Perfect. So I'd ask you this question. Since we do have around 60–70% instructional designers and e-learning developers, so using the chat box, what's typically the main design challenges that you face when it comes to asynchronous e-learning courses, the design phase of it? So what typically are the challenges you face?
Looks like several people are typing. That's still coming in. Just use that questions panel. Okay, here they come. So one of the biggest challenge people are facing is learner engagement, making it interactive, scope creeps coming up a few times, designing quickly, engagement, student engagement, organization of content into modules, managing time. Oh, the subject matter expert requirements is a big one. Gaining engagement and interaction. So it seems like there's those 3 are big ones. Interactivity and engagement, scope creep, and then the amount of time that it requires to make it what you dream it would be.
Yep. Well, those makes perfect sense, and they are quite aligned with mine, by the way. So I'll share with you my main 6 design challenges when it comes to e-learning. first is the control. So sometimes I do feel like, I'm losing control of my design, feeling lost. So one thing was controlling the process itself. Two is consistency. So how to be consistent in designing impactful learning journeys, right? Rather than it's, by chance, one course is good, the other one is not. Third is, and I think that was one of the three buckets mentioned, is learning engagement. So how to ensure that there is a consistency, not only in the learning impact, but also on the engagement of our learners. Fourth, and that was mentioned, our stakeholders. How do I guarantee that they are committed and they are aligned, whether they are the requesters or the clients or the SMEs? And this was mentioned as well. Time, how to avoid redoing any work, whether because it was not aligned with the SMEs or my stakeholders, or maybe because I didn't like the end product. So how to be more agile and avoid redoing work. And finally, identifying the proper need of the client, which is actually crucial and actually presents the very first stage in our map. So we will discuss over the presentation how the e-learning design map will overcome those challenges, as well as the ones that you shared, one of which would be the content chunking as well. To do so, we will need to first explore the three different components of the e-learning design map. Second, we'll share with you a couple of examples how we've been using the e-learning design map in different course modalities. And finally, how it will solve our challenges, or at least my challenges. So the components of the e-learning design map, once you download the map, you will find three main sections. The first is the map itself, and this is the project management tool. This is the high-level guideline that would tell you where are you in your projects. Second one is the handbook, and this is the comprehensive guideline. This is the documentation in which you will actually type in and document every single step you do throughout your project. And finally, the checkpoints, and this, I think, the last page of the design map. And this is sort of the quality assurance checkpoint, making sure that you won't miss any design step and ensures quality. And it tells you when to move from one step to another. So you need to tick the box before moving from one step to another. Through the upcoming slides, I'll explain each one of those three components and how to read them. So let's start with the map itself. And the map, you will find the map on 2 pages, the second and third of your design map. And it is composed of stages. So in total, we do have 10 stages. Those are the ones with the big numbers next to them. So you can find number 1 is the data collection, validation, proposal, and so on and so forth. Each one of these stages, it has steps, whether 1 to 10, more or less steps within each stage. Each step has a question that you need to answer or an action that you need to fulfill. And this is what we're going to actually complete in the section 2, which is the handout. And finally, next to some of the steps, you will find a yellow rectangle, which means that here there is a checkpoint, which means that you cannot move forward, or actually it's advised to fulfill this checkpoint before moving to the following step. Why? In order to save you time. So let's take an example here. So 05, we have stage number 5, which is the impact. It has a step, which is 5.1, the expectations. And this step, which is expectations, is about developing the learning journeys objectives, not the course only, the learning objective, which is the action that you need to do. And it has a checkpoint. And if we go back to the very last page, you will find that this checkpoint is considering the adult learning principles and aligning with the stakeholders. So in total, we do have 10 stages, 47 steps, and 34 checkpoints. So now one would say that, okay, so it seems that our map is going into a very linear approach, right? It's from 1 to 2 to 3. So, but actually it has a different way of using it. So by raise of hand, I would like to know how many of you do apply agile approaches to design. So following whether SAM, Agile, or any other iterative agile approach to design.
There is a hand raising button that you guys can click also in that GoToWebinar control panel. Do you mind rephrasing that question one more time, Mohamed?
Yeah, of course. So how many of you do apply other design models or instruction design models than ADDIE? How many of you do apply SAM, Agile, any sort of iterative Agile approach rather than the linear or waterfall process of ADDIE?
So it looks like only about 20% of our audience does that.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we will see how the e-learning design map or our structure will go. So first, in the first two stages, actually, it's about the needs analysis, right? So first one is about identifying the client needs through data collection, and then how to validate this need, which is crucial and very important to proceed. And then the proposal, which is about documenting your conclusions and recommendations, going forward to deciding on your project plan, project team, aligning with the stakeholders. And then one of the very important things is the impact. And this stage, it includes mainly two things: creating your learning objectives, and number two, creating your impact matrix, which is about your promise, what you're promising your stakeholders that learners will be able to do after attending this journey. And then starting from step 6, which is content, and it's about content resources. And here you will find answers to content chunking and content grading, flow, and the real development of the content, writing the content and the scripts. Starting from here, we will go into sort of cycles in using an agile approach. So 7 is the design, in which you actually design your readiness, learning, and reinforcement stages. You design your, you select your design strategy, and I'll share a couple of examples. You create your storyboards. And step 8 is about actually the real development using your authoring tools, creating your templates, assets, doing user acceptance testing. And then we have another cycle between 7 and 8 and 9. It's another iteration in which we do the rollout of the course and take the feedback and enhance whether the development or the design accordingly. And finally is the result, which is about documenting the whole journey as well as measuring the impact. So yes, it goes more or less into linear waterfall approach from 1 to 5, more or less. While starting from 6 to 9, it's completely agile approach. And that's why I would recommend using the SAM model. And I'll share with you an example here. So a couple of months ago, or a period ago, we were creating a course for coaching skills. And at that time, my team didn't follow an agile approach. So they went into a linear approach completely, even without more or less aligning with me or the different stakeholders. And at the end, we were not hitting the mark. We were not, the course was not what we were aiming for. And it took around 3 weeks, which is around a couple of thousand of dollars. And at the end of the day, we had to revamp it. So that's one benefit I see from following agile approaches. So it was kind of a lesson learned. So that was the map and how it is structured on the workflow rather than the 2 pages that you will find in your document. Second part is the handbook. And as I mentioned, the handbook is the breakdown of the map. It tells you exactly what to do, whether through a question or statement. So the same process. You have the stage. Each stage has a specific step. So here we do have the data collection. 1.2 is success criteria. And we have a question or an action to take. So for example, for this one, what's the expected impact on business results? And the good thing is that you can use the current version of the map that you just downloaded because it's editable. So you can just type in and you have your full project into one document. And I'd like to ask you another question. You can use the chat box. When you design or develop e-learning courses, what typically are the templates that you rely on? What are the templates that you use throughout your design and development journey?
Give everyone a moment to think and then
Sure.
start typing out. Okay, so these are starting to come in. So one person said that they use their past training designs. So maybe pull up an old design and start building off of that. I use PowerPoint to storyboard, on Word that I've customized over time. So you start to build your own stuff. The more you do it, the more you want it a certain way. Customized changes. It changes from time to time. There's no typical template because every project is so different. A program map. A lot of people saying they just use their past designs. They'll pull up an old project and move on that. Another person says that they use their Lectora templates or the template from Elearning Brothers. We have a storyboarding template that a lot of people will use as well.
Cool. So yeah, I agree with all the comments, and I think one of the other benefits of the second section, which is the handbook, is that it has a couple of templates, and as you mentioned, Andrew, one of which is the storyboard. But again, every designer has his own preference in storyboarding, as well as how he communicates with the developer if they have different roles. But the thing is, as well, it has a quality assurance form that you can use internally to make sure that your output is up to the standards, as well as a user acceptance testing form. And I'll share with you another example, another story here. We were creating a course related to live chat for a call center. And at the time, our L1 results, so reaction, L1 of Kirkpatrick, so the feedback we usually receive from learners was quite high. And we were typically applying or following the user acceptance testing implementation before the initial launch of the course. And we were kind of proud of this course, kind of a bit, I don't know. We said, okay, we were kind of confident about the output, so there is no need to do any user acceptance testing. And for the specific one, our L1 results went down by 20%, which is kind of huge. So that was another lesson learned that we learned from skipping one or more of the steps of the learning design map. And third is the checkpoint. And this is your quality assurance stage. This is the thing that make sure that you're not forgetting anything, that you will more or less create quality content. And it has the checkpoints or principles, like you can see adult learning principles, neuroscience of learning, content tone and readability, and so on and so forth. And here you can find, for example, remember our 5.1 step, which was related to learning objectives. He tells you that, okay, do not move forward to 5.2 before you make sure that you're applying adult learning principles, and so on and so forth. So another question to you, and we have another poll, our last poll. What do you think is the most frequently checkpoint? Which checkpoint is the most repeated one in our third section? Is it
so that poll is up on the screen. You guys can click right on it. Content, tone, and readability, organization's learning environment, subject matter expert review and approval, or learning principles, adult learning principles. These are coming in, and I think everybody's agreeing on one of these for sure. We'll give you guys about 5 more seconds here. All right, and the results are in. 61% of our audience says it's subject matter expert review and approval. The others are nowhere near that. So that would be this audience's consensus.
Yeah, for our map, it's by far the SME review and approval, as well as stakeholders alignment and approval. So the very first 2 columns in your checkpoint table, they are very frequent because they are very important. And if you remember correctly, we said we don't want to redo any work. we need our stakeholders to be aligned, and SMEs, give us the sign off or the green light for whatsoever we develop. And I think one of the things here to mention as well, we had a case in which we a bit ignored having frequent alignment sessions or meetings with our SMEs and stakeholders. And typically, after we launch any course, after any engagement, we send a survey to our stakeholders and ask them for their NPS. And for this particular project, our NPS was 3, which is extremely low, right? So again, that's another lesson learned that, when there is a checkpoint, let's follow the checkpoint. And when we did that, our NPS reached the 9, which is a promoter, not a demoter. So that was another lesson learned to related to the use of checkpoints. So I'll pause here and let's take a couple of questions before sharing with you a couple of examples on how to use the e-learning design map. You can type your questions in the chat.
There is one quick question. Would you mind defining NPS?
Yeah, sure. So NPS is Net Promoter Score. So after it's like similar to customer satisfaction. So and it's a rating from 1 to 10. I think 9 and 10 are promoters, and below this there is sort of neutral people, and then from 1 to 6 or 0 to 6 is people wouldn't recommend working with your team as a client. So it's sort of how they were satisfied of our relationship, our output, and so on and so forth.
And who measures your NPS?
So it's a survey that we send to our stakeholders. So if you're working in a corporate L&D and you receive a request, let's assume from the marketing department. So this is your client, and this client has his own SMEs. So your SMEs are as well included in this NPS survey, because you need to know how you dealt with them in terms of alignment, communication, commitment. Did you meet their expectations, and so on and so forth. So this is the kind of people who fill in the survey or answer the question of NPS.
Excellent. Would you use parts of the guide as a template for documenting conversations with the subject matter experts or stakeholders?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, the very first section, which is about identifying the needs and the validation, I typically print them and go with them with the first meeting with my stakeholders to make sure that I go over the questions. And as you go all over the 47 steps, there are back and forth discussion between you as a designer or developer and with the stakeholders. So yeah, most of them, you will find them very useful in those meetings or conversations. Yep.
Excellent. All right, those are all the questions we'll take now. We can move on and we'll take more questions later.
Okay, cool. So let's share with you a couple of examples, and here I'll take just sections from the e-learning design map and not the whole map, of course, for the sake of time. So number one, we were creating a course about anti-corruption for an NGO, British NGO, all over the world, 8,000 employees. And at that time, when dealing with the SMEs, we identified that there are 4 types of corruption, like bribery, nepotism, and so on and so forth. And they wanted us to teach them how to deal with those types of corruption. So this is just a snapshot of one of the sections of the design map, which is stage 7. So in stage 7, which is the core of the design, we have 7.2.1, which is the design strategy. So how we use this, we thought that, okay, we have 4 types of corruption. So thought, okay, maybe it could be a good idea to go for a case-based course in which you go over 4 cases and, you interact with the case and, identify what's the proper solution to this case. Also, we thought that it's good to be gamified, because after doing some audience analysis, we thought, okay, maybe to increase the engagement, it would be good, and especially that the LMS was supporting us, to include some gamification elements. So we had pointing system, we had badges. So the better you deal with anti-corruption, you get, I can't remember, but I think there was a silver badge, a golden badge, and so on and so forth. And for that was the design strategies we applied. And for the lesson plan model, so how are we going to organize the instructions within each section, we thought that the CCAF model, which is context, challenge, activity, and feedback, they go very well with whether simulation-based or case-based, in which you give your learning a specific context, and then here's the challenge. Okay, take the decision now, which is the action, and then share the feedback. So again, we have a case-based gamified using CCAF model as a solution. So this is a snapshot of the home page or landing page of the course. So here you will have a sort of a city. We created a city with the support of our graphic designers, and it had 4 locations in black. You can see a farm, a coffee shop, a factory, and a government institution. And those were very well selected because those are 4 of the locations where this NGO operates. And there was complete freedom for the learning to select any of these locations. Once clicking, you start getting the context. So in the coffee shop, you met this person, and then the challenge, he offered you a bribery, and then what would be the feedback? And once you finalize those locations, their state changes to colored, which means that you fulfilled, you get your points and your badges. So that was an example. Another one is in a call center environment, and we were teaching agents or customer service agents how to deal with different types of customers. And we identified 3 types of customers. So the easy one, which calls and knows exactly what he wants. The second one is the angry. So, and we were all this type of customer, right? So we call the customer service and we were angry for one reason or another. And the third one is the hesitant, which is the most difficult, by the way, based on our analysis, which actually calls but doesn't know exactly what he wants. So we thought, okay, we have the easy, the angry, and the hesitant, and then we got this crazy idea. Okay, why don't we sort of mimic the 60s? I think it was 1960s movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Clint Eastwood, if you know it. So okay, so we said, okay, we do have some luxury in our organization, which is related to the learning environment. We have our own studios, recording studios. We have our digital cameras and microphones, so very well equipped studio. And at the same time, the learning or e-learning perception was at the beginning kind of routine, a bit boring. So we needed something that is more visual, more creative to boost completion and of course impact. So we said, okay, let's mimic this atmosphere of old Western movies, right? And we went actually the extra mile, and we got some, all the props that would convey the message, and we created some posters, which is part, as I will show you next, in the readiness phase in the e-learning design map, how to create hype about your course. So we brought, revolvers, poncho, hats, and we had this, those are actually my colleagues in the organization. So we went to our studio and we had to take some, create some videos. And as you can see, the reward at the bottom of each poster is different based on the complexity of the situation that you will face. So if you go to step 7.1, which is about the readiness, we decided to go for a marketing campaign. I think that was 3 weeks or so before launching the course. And for our design strategy, it was simulation based. So we put the customer service agent in a real atmosphere, and it was gamified as I showed you. So those were a couple of examples how you can use sections of the e-learning design map to make sure that you're meeting your customer expectations and achieving your goals. Do you have any further questions, Andrew?
There are a couple questions here and a comment. Thank you to you for making the handout fillable form so that it's workable. So thank you. That's great. There is a quick question. Are the models of 7.2.2 explained in the handbook?
That's a good question. It was explained in the previous learning design map. I can share with you a sample of it in terms of the models like CCAF, youre, ropes. But no, because this is not sort of a reference book, it's sort of a handbook. But at the end, I'll share with you how you can know those resources or know those, sort of abbreviation. What do you mean by ropes, war, and Gani, and those stuff? But it's not
Sure.
covered here.
Okay. Are you going to cover in the session what the other acronyms in the model section mean? Or maybe that's a better question for if you want to know those at the end. We're going to be sharing some contact information. You can reach out to Mohamed directly, and he can work with you to get the answers to those questions. And that might be the case with some of these other questions as well. So we'll move along, and then we'll see how much time we have at the end.
Okay, cool. So the last section, as I promised you, is how our e-learning design map will help us save. You remember the very first six challenges of not having control, consistency, engagement, stakeholder alignment, redoing some work, and the proper identification of the client needs. So number one, as you scroll through your e-learning design map, you'll find that I think it's quite comprehensive. It took us around 18 months to work on it to make sure that everything has been included. Again, you will not use 100% of it in your project to set your expectations because we try to make everything available. But again, it's, as most of you mentioned, it's based on the need. Maybe these 50%, 60% of it. So being comprehensive will give you full control exactly where you are in your process, especially if you're senior instructional designer and you have different designers working with you. So I'm at stage 9, I'm at stage 7, whatsoever. And consistency, because you're following more or less the same approach. And I share with you I think 3 sort of bad experiences of lacking consistency. Also, since most of the models and theories are sort of embedded within the map, whether in the questions or statements that you need to fulfill, then again, that fulfills the consistency part as well as guarantees the part of the engagement, because we're taking care of the adult learning principles, we're taking care of neuroscience of learning, we're taking care of different learning modalities, and so on and so forth. And we're very learning centered in the e-learning design map. In terms of stakeholders and redoing things, as I told you, we typically advise people to work in an agile, iterative approach, so that you make sure that your stakeholders are always aligned, committed, and that would save you time to redo anything, as well as the checkpoints serves you to make sure, yeah, I can now move from stage 3 to stage 4 confidently. And the question that we had at the beginning, using parts of the map in the interviews with the SMEs, which are the mainly stages are 1 and 2, they are quite detailed. So you make sure that you're building your hypothesis properly because you've done your homework of identifying properly the client need and validating before going into the proposal. So those were the things that we found after applying the e-learning design map in real projects, how it was serving us to overcome those challenges. So typically, the plan was to have a Kahoot game here to sort of do a recap, but unfortunately, there was a problem in the system. So I'll go for a very simple, key takeaways that I would like to share with you before the last segment of Q&A. The first is, remember that the e-learning design map is a comprehensive project management tool along with handouts rather than a new instructional design model, because people sometimes say, it's a new instructional design model. No, it's not an instructional design model. It's a project management tool that we're considering different design models, and we took the best from each one. Second, it focuses on asynchronous self-paced e-learning. The previous one, this one at the top with the colors green, orange, and blue, that was the previous learning design map, which was focusing on instructor-led training and virtual instructor-led training. But this one is mainly focusing on asynchronous self-paced e-learning. Third, it's composed of three components, 3 sections: the map for the project management high level, details in the handbook, and quality assurance or quality control with the checkpoints. And finally, actually, it's not can be used, it's recommended to be used in agile iterative way. So those were the main key points I wanted to discuss with you. And yeah, I think it's time for questions.
Excellent, excellent. There is a question here. How big is your team?
Okay, so previous organization, it depends from organization to organization. In certain cases, it was 13, and then I went for more specialization. So the organization before the one I'm currently working in, I had 2 developers, a team of graphic designers, LMS admin, and animator. Currently, I do have directly to me instruction designer and 3 e-learning developers with the capacity to work on graphic designs as well, and some animations. But when I go into project, I have a matrix structure. So sometimes I can find myself working with 10 more or less people. So that's the team.
Excellent. There's a question here. Does Elearning Brothers use this? I'm assuming they're talking about our custom team. Rich, do you want to maybe take that one?
Well, it's just been introduced to us, so we use components of it, but we haven't used the formal model. But certainly our vice president of custom is looking at this now that Mohamed has introduced us to it. And I did want to ask Mohamed, what have you found? Well, I love this because I've been doing this type of work for a couple of decades now, but we often find that we get stuck at certain spots, or there are places where we've forgotten something, or we've just gotten so used to doing it one way. But have you noticed that there's one area of the ELDM where we find that it helps us stay on track? What would that be? Whether it's working with stakeholders or being thoughtful about your methodology regarding how you're going to present objectives, or I don't know, your experience, what has been sort of the hot spot?
I think the hot spot would be you will find in 5.2 of the impact matrix. So I think currently in organizations, we're not talking about just producing content. We're talking about leaving impact. So what was missing in the previous learning design map is this focus on the impact, and we're trying to reach as much as we can, providing evidence on the result side, which is L4, as much as we can. So that was the main highlight of this version, alongside with the design stage, which is 7, because it's completely different than the previous one. You're talking about e-learning, and here we're focusing on the journey. So, and that's why you will have readiness phase even before introducing the course to your learners, and then there is the learning phase, which is the real formal course, and then you will have the reinforcement stage. And this is, in my opinion, this is the most appropriate cycle to make learning stick, to change the behavior, and accordingly impact results. So those were, I would say, the 2 main highlights of this version of the e-learning design map.
Thank you. Excellent.
Wonderful. What is the average? So obviously we've got a lot of developers here and a lot of designers. What is the average time to produce a 15-minute course? Or in other words, how has this created efficiency, or has it created efficiency?
Okay, that's a tough question because we're serving 2,000 plus employees. So, and that's why I told you, you will not use every time everything here. So we have different aspects or dimensions we consider, like scalability, agility, localization of the around 6 or 7 aspects, according to which we prioritize the design strategy. And the core is the design strategy, because based on the design strategy, you will create your sketches or storyboards. Sometimes I go for sketches for the sake of time. Sometimes we create full storyboards. Based on the design strategy, you can go for a very sort of, I would say, intermediate interactive course using maybe Rise or basic interactivities in Storyline or Captivate, or you can go the extreme to a complete simulation base. So there is no clear-cut answer. But 15 slides, let's assume average or intermediate interactivity using and to be produced as a SCORM package, maybe around, I don't know, 3 days, including building the assets, more or less. And we have we call it the e-learning development calculator. So we have a calculator in which you include whether you have assets, to what extent the assets are complicated. Do you have a voiceover? Do you have a video? Do you have an animation? And we have sort of, drop-down menus. And at the end, it would give you an estimate number of per 10 slides, how long it would take. But in a nutshell, it's all about the design strategy and what approach you're going to take.
Wonderful. How has COVID-19 changed the way you're working, including working with your clients? And I think this is a great question for both of you, Richard and Mohamed. But let's go to Mohamed first.
Okay, cool. So couple of things. Number one, in terms of the organization, we didn't stop any e-learning because we have a strong LMS. People are, that's part of the normal, having e-learning courses. We couldn't create a full journey because there were no the face-to-face interaction. We couldn't do any marketing campaigns and so on and so forth. But as a course itself, not a journey, I wouldn't say it was impacted. Definitely meeting the stakeholders face-to-face, having the very first savvy start, as Michael Allen says, the very first brainstorming session, that was lacking virtually, to be honest with you. So it has an impact on the innovation. And in terms of different learning modalities, we used to rely on instructor-led training, which completely changed to virtual instructor-led training, everything on webinars. Yeah.
Richard?
I would say, yeah, I mean, internally, probably many of us have been the same way. Our office is certainly remote now. We're a company of 100 people, and we we have offices in Florida, New York, and Utah. We're all at home most of the time. We've started to allow some to come into the office here and there, but beyond that, in terms of our clients and our customers, we're probably a lot of us have seen a lot of the white noise. How are you doing? Companies reaching out, and I call it white noise, but we have done some reach outs to our clients. How's it going? How can we help? We're finding that we are able to do a lot of just providing remote types of resources for our clients. So early on, many of you probably saw that we provided a remote worker series of courses for free that folks could download, use on their LMS. We had just a tremendous response to that. Andrew actually, I think, led that campaign, which was awesome to see that. We've also had a lot of, on the custom side, a lot of requests for help. As projects were sort of sitting, they got going again. So we've been able to help people get their training online. So I guess I would say from a company perspective, certainly it's changed the way we work. Luckily, we are a very, very remote workforce, so that's been great. And then watching the industry, been again a lot of need for getting things online. Maybe things were not moving, and then suddenly they are moving because it's important to get things moving in such a way that people can get the training they need without having to be face to face. So I don't know if that helps, but it's kind of my perspective on what's been going on.
I think that goes into another question here. So with this need to push courses as fast as you can, this person says, I wish I could be so thorough in my planning of courses, but I'm the only training developer, illustrator, and LMS admin on top of my technical writing responsibilities. Perhaps I could extract those sections that would be the most impactful. We're not, while this may make our work more organized, we're looking for something that's just going to help us push content out faster in a more organized way. Thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I think there is a book called The E-Learning, The Department of One. In many organizations, it's the same person doing everything. There is no right or wrong, but my preference is for specialization. So yeah, it would be a challenge because in some organizations, it's about pushing content in a very short period of time. And to be honest with you, when that is the case, like for example, creating, if there are any SOPs, procedures, things related to compliance, I don't think you will have the luxury to follow those sort of structured approach to create content. But if you're creating something that would be sustainable, which means that you won't change it any going forward, because processes change, policies change. But things like related to your corporate values, for example, or leadership behaviors, or things related to coaching or soft skills, more or less this content is worth investing the time, because it will be there and it will be used across the board for different layers in the organization. In that case, I think you will benefit for using most of the stages here. If it's just about producing content and respond to requests rapidly, I think maybe you would like to jump to steps 7, 8, and 9, and see what specific steps you will benefit from. But I can see your point, of course.
I feel like I also wanted to point out, and someone in our audience has pointed out, if you're trying to push content out faster, eLearning Brothers has tons and tons of templates and assets that can really help your development time get cut in half, if not more.
100%.
Let's see. There's we're coming close on time. I'll maybe take 1 or 2 more questions. Do you have any suggestions on ways to create interesting product step-by-step lessons? Our customers use lessons as just-in-time training.
So one of the approaches, and you will find it in the design sketches, is having linked lessons or linked sessions, which is fine. People would say that could be one of the least engaging ways. But again, it depends on to what extent you need to respond to the request. So I had this discussion with the team, and typically designers developers would go for a very comprehensive, engaging, sort of simulation-based courses or game-based courses. But it depends on many factors. You can go for just-in-time learning or linked sessions. So again, it depends on the current situation and need. And I do apply it many times, by the way.
We'll take 2 more quick questions. Well, maybe 1 question and a comment here. How detailed should the storyboard be, and what is the best format to use in your opinion? For example, is it PowerPoint? Is it inside the tool itself? And how close to the final look and feel should it be?
Interesting question. So if you noticed earlier, I said sketching/storyboarding. I think a storyboard, if you're talking about there is a designer and instructional designer and there is a developer, so we have 2 people. So I think whatsoever you're going to deliver to this developer needs to be easy, and there should be sort of an alignment. I've been using an old template, and then I joined a company and I found that the 3 developers I'm working with, they don't find it handy, they don't find it easy to use. So I completely changed it. So my preference is to use visual storyboards. I use PowerPoints, but again, it's all about the communication between you and the developer. As the relationships strengthen, as the developer understands what is the mind of the designer, I currently do not even storyboard. I just sketch. I take my tablet and throw some sort of assets on my screen, and I just email them or show them to my developer. So now they understand me, what I'm meaning by this moving here, or the specific animation or specific interactivity or specific trigger or variable to be included. So again, it's how to make it easy for the user, which is the developer, to create without getting back to you often to ask questions. I'm not a big fan of the word-based or the text-based storyboard. I found them not very handy or user-friendly to the, again, no right or wrong, but this is my own experience. Sure. As for for rapid authoring, or you're creating on the tool itself, that's good if you're showing it to the stakeholder to get a sort of the green light to proceed. So you can create a couple of slides as a storyboard on your authoring tool.
Excellent. And then before I take this last one, I think you have 1 more slide for people to get in contact with you. So there are more questions. We're pretty much out of time. I would love to make sure that everybody can get their questions answered. Right there on the screen, you can see you can find Mohamed on LinkedIn. He's also got his email right there. Please do, send him a message, reach out to him. I'm sure you're happy to respond to a lot of these people's questions. So
Of course.
we can make that possible. This last question, I'm going to throw at you, Rich. We have a lot of one-man shops here on this session. A lot of people are saying, "Yep, I'm a one-man show," and so I don't have the time or the quality or the ability to scope out all of these layers without a large team. And you, before you were in customer success, you spent a lot of time with the eLearning Brothers custom team, and we talked about them a little bit before. Does our eLearning Brothers custom team have the ability to help a one-man shop for a short time, or does it have to be they take over the course and build everything for you? How can we work with a one-man shop?
It's a great question. First of all, I've been there, certainly have done that in my career, so my hat's off to you. I know what that feels like. Mohamed's ELDM, this tool is, I think, an incredible reminder for those of us who are a one-man shop and often feel like for example, I used to often feel like I have no time for design. I can't really think creatively about what should this look like and who is the audience and what will they appreciate. I just got to go right to develop something and bang it out and kick it out, and the stakeholders are happy. So I've been there. I totally get it. So yes, we have done that often with clients who just need help for a period of time, and we call it like a support services agreement. So it is something that the team has done, where we're able to just put something in place to say, let's help you on an ad hoc basis as you have need. We work with our production team to do that. So yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm just Richard at elearningbrothers.com. I can certainly steer you in the right direction if we can provide some help. And you may be surprised at what we have just ready-made. As Andrew mentioned earlier, somebody had made a comment about all the pieces we have that could help you quickly. But as a one-man shop, I highly recommend taking Mohamed's work, printing this out, putting it on your wall, and just making reminders of areas where we might be sacrificing as we're moving along. Sure, I know Mohamed's available to consult as well. I don't know if you have any more time for that. Mohamed used to be an international consultant, but maybe you're too busy now. But I think
actually, the original plan of having the Kahoot game was to offer the top 3 people who score a sort of couple of hours of free consultation in their upcoming e-learning courses. But now I think it will be first in, first served. So the first 3 who will reach out to me, I think, and I'm sorry for that. That's the only option I do have, is to serve them, of course, in their upcoming courses using ELDM.
Cool.
So do reach out to Mohamed. I'm going to take the screen back just for a second here as we round out our session. As Richard mentioned, do reach out to us if you would like to talk about what consultations, or if you just need a little bit of help on your project, you can do so. You can schedule what we call a jam session, a consultation, a discussion. You can give us a call at 801-796-2767. You can send an email to info@elearningbrothers.com. Richard's given his email address out too, so if you'd like to reach directly out to him, richard@elearningbrothers.com. And if you want some ideas or to check out our templates or what other solutions we have for you, please visit elearningbrothers.com. All right, great. This has been so fantastic. Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's been very
valuable. Sleep, brother.
Yes, go to sleep. Midnight. It's time to go to bed.
Sleeping in the middle, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, we'll see y'all next time.
Bye-bye.